Have you had the experience where you play a game and you do your turn and then you wait for your turn so that you can do your turn, then you do your turn, then you wait for your turn so that you can do your turn, and then you do your turn, and then you wait for your turn. In game design terms, that's called downtime. It happens often in games that don't have player interaction, where you're not interested in what other players are doing on their turns, and it's perfectly fine. There are some very fun games that have downtime, but today we're talking about how we can have player interactions in our games, how to make those interactions not feel bad, not feel like feeding the sadists in us, you know? We don't want to be just punishing other players or being cruel. What you're often going to hear is you're going to hear the terms positive interaction and negative interaction. And it is kind of a spectrum, and there is a lot that you can do to make negative interaction into positive, or I guess the other way around, I'm not sure. So a negative interaction typically is a direct, you can say like taking away from other players, you directly affecting them in a negative way. Positive player interactions, on the other hand, are things like cooperating, or players affect each other, but maybe you're going somewhere, so I'm gaining something. Gaining from other players' actions. Gosh, somebody recently commented about my bad handwriting. I get it. I absolutely get it. I'm sorry, I'll try better. It's got character. My characters have character. The reason why we want interaction in our games is, for one thing, we want the drama it causes. I mean, you get table talk through interaction. If you're interested in other players' turns, well then you're not gonna have the temptation to like have your mind wander, you know? In games, we often talk about flow, which is like that experience when you're playing a game and you don't realize that a bunch of time has passed. That is because you were in a state of flow. You're completely in the game and just making decisions and planning, and you lose track of time. But when you don't have interactions with other players, it's much easier for you to kind of lower the priority of the game and you to start thinking about things to have the time pass. So what are some ways that we can have interactions in our games? Let's start with one very simple one. I saw it for the first time in a game called Captain Flip. And what I love about this mechanic is it's so easy to just put inside of a game and have it work in almost any context. In Captain Flip, the way that it works is certain actions have this little map icon. And there is one token on the board, which is a map. And what that token does is when you have it, you gain 1 coin for every turn that you have the map. Now, what's cool about Captain Flip is when you take this icon that gives you the map, you take it away from the other player. But you're gonna say, hey, isn't that a negative interaction? I'm taking away something from somebody. Yes, it is. But also, you're taking away something that feels like a bonus. It feels like it was given to them. It wasn't something that they built so much. And another thing they've done in Captain Flip is it's going to trigger the same turn you take it. So you're guaranteed to at least gain 1 coin. So it's never, well, I took the map, but I didn't get to use it. No, you got to use it once, and you're trying to play so that you get it at a time when other players are less likely to have this icon and be able to take it away from you. Another type of interaction is the race. It could be a literal race, but it could also be a race to resources, or a race to locations, or a race to doing something first. This could be also done with blocking. So for instance, let's say we have a worker placement game and we have a place where there's a limited number of spaces. And then that first one could have a bonus. I want to go there first so that I get that bonus. That immediately makes it more interactive. I want to go there, but if somebody else blocks me, well, that causes drama, right? What you blocking them is doing is actually, it's making them replan what they're gonna do, and that could make for some really interesting stuff, right? Because we don't want to have our players always have everything figured out, right? We don't want their plans to go as planned, because that's not going to have drama. If we have other players block them, well then they're going to need to rethink. They're going to need to say, okay, well now I can't do this thing I was planning on doing. What can I do instead? I think there's something to be said about allowing players to make themselves vulnerable, right? Allowing players to take a risk, and then I feel like negative interactions are kind of more okay, right? When you give players the choice, when they know that something bad can happen and they opt into it, there's a risk versus reward, which is super interesting, but also it doesn't feel sadistic. So you can give players options of choosing to become vulnerable. So that's something you can see in like King of Tokyo, or my favorite example, which I'll draw on here. It's probably my favorite game ever. It is Dune Imperium. In Dune Imperium, you've got certain spaces that let you go to a zone where you and other players are going to fight at the end of the round. And there's guaranteed going to be a fight if there are cubes there, if players have chosen to go there, right? And that's a place where you're going to guaranteed to lose everything that you've put in there. It's just, that's on the line. But if I do win, then we have a really good reward at the end of each round. If you let players opt into a situation where there's risk and reward, well, I think that's a really good type of interaction. Very positive player interaction is using triggers which are connected to other players. A company that makes games that do this really well is Stonemaier. Lots of their games have this type of interaction where you're building something up, and that thing is going to affect the player to your left and the player to your right. If you're making a very high player count game, I would recommend still, lots of times it's better to stick with left and right because that's just very easy to see. But for example, in Scythe, you've got an upgrade where whenever a player to your left or right does a specific action, then you gain a benefit. So let's say whenever the player to my left moves, I gain a coin. This is really cool because when you play a game, you're looking out for your own benefits, right? You're trying to win, you're trying to see what you're gonna get. And this makes you look at and be interested in what the other players are doing, because if they do a specific thing, well then I'm gonna gain a benefit. Well then I'm gonna get something out of it. Another type of sort of trigger from other players, let's say it's called ownership. In Lords of Waterdeep, players can actually build new locations that other players can visit, but they've placed their own cube on there to signify that that's their place. And when other players visit it, well, you gain something. So you get this really cool interaction, which is, please go to the place that I've built. And the game is designed in such a way that these places are typically very good actions, so that another player will actually want to go there because they know that they're giving you something good, but it's like, well, I may as well because I need this benefit. So giving players a sense of owning something and rewarding them when other players use that thing, I think that's a really nice, very, very positive interaction. Another form of interaction is cooperating. And you can even have this in a competitive game. You can have players cooperate. A game that I've seen do this in a really interesting way is called Merchants of the Dark Road. What it does is when players choose to do a specific action, which is go on this little caravan in that game, well, they can choose to go together. And it'll make it easier for all of the players that have gone to gain benefits. And in this way, players are competing, but for this specific action, well, they actually want other players to come with them so that they could make the action as easy as possible. So be on the lookout for how players are interacting in your game. Is there ways that they can interact with each other? When they are interacting, are they being cruel? Playing with other players can be so much fun. And I think it's such a huge part of why we didn't have solo games for a very long time. And nowadays we've got a lot of games where, yeah, we've got these really interesting mechanics, but I think it's so nice when you can get players together, when you can have table talk, when you can feel that you're not by yourself when you're playing. If you would like help with your specific game, I am currently offering one-on-ones, which you can find down below. Thank you.